Welcome back to Into the Breach on Unfair, friends. It's time to bust out the Heat Sinkers, sometimes referred to by the Heat Stinkers. This is a squad that has some problems. So we've got the Prime Class Dispersal Mech, with a very interesting weapon that does small damage in a line and then pushes things adjacent to the arc of fire. The Quickfire Mech, which is a brute class that fires rockets in two different directions, and the Napalm Mech, which is a science class weapon, or mech, and it has the Firestorm Generator that produces fire in an arc and pushes at the very end of its trajectory. They also have a passive ability that makes them immune to fire, and if they stand on a tile that is on fire, they gain the boosted ability, where they get +1 to weapon damage. So, looking at the islands available to me, I am considering my options. One of the weaknesses of the Heat Sinkers is they've got pretty low damage output at the beginning, even with access to the boosted ability. And they've got pretty limited... you'll see what I'm talking about soon. But I don't like how tough a lot of these Vec are I'm looking at. However, Archive has the Shell Scion, and if I'm going to be setting things on fire a lot, then my thought process was that the Shell Scion would be less of a problem. And Scarabs and Bouncers are really not that big a deal, and, Leapers have low HP. So I kind of thought maybe Archive would be my best bet. Now, I'm unlucky here, because I have the mandatory mission. This is how the map shook out. Kill 6 or fewer enemies. That's not great, because... only the Dispersal Mech and the Napalm Mech are capable of forced movement at the beginning. All the Quickfire Mech can do is damage, which means all it can really contribute is killing. This map seed is kind of nasty. The method of forced movement available to me means that if the enemy is going to be attacking the grid from the south side, on row B, C, and D, my ability to push them out of the way is going to be very limited. Let's see, other weaknesses this squad has. They are in they're one of the rare squads with an HP deficit. Most squads have 2 mechs with 3 HP and 1 mech with 2 HP. For some reason, the Heat Sinkers have 2 HP mechs. So they are a little bit more fragile out of the gate than most other squads. And we've got some real problems here, right at the beginning. The Bouncers are kind of blocking my access to reach the Alpha Leaper and the Scarab that are targeting the grid. The Quickfire Mech is restrained, but it doesn't matter because it really isn't going to be able to kill anything unless it gets boosted somehow, and even then, the only thing it would stand a chance of killing quickly would be the Scarab. It's going to be problems. If we use the Dispersal Mech's kind of flamethrower-looking weapon to free the Quickfire Mech, we would also be pushing the Bouncer such that it would target the grid. So, there's just all sorts of things. What I wind up doing is I shoot I shoot the Napalm Mech to shove the Bouncer out of the way. This way I'm protecting the power plant, and then I just have to give up the Quickfire Mech. It's doomed. I can't rescue it, and I didn't want to lose the power generator if at all possible. So we've already lost 2 grid health, and we've lost a pilot, and we're down a mech action. It's gonna be bad all around. Yes, the Dispersal Mech is capable of a lot of forced movement. It's not a good damage dealer, and its weapon is extremely expensive to upgrade, both to upgrade its range or to upgrade it so that it leaves fire behind. And so you mostly want to think about it as a movement tool. The best I could do here is I can at least save Ralph Carlson's life through friendly fire, thanks to initiative. The Alpha Leaper will kill the other Alpha Leaper. However, I'm going to lose the power generator. So we not only will not be getting the grid health we've lost back, but we are also going to lose our Perfect Island reward, which means no replacement pilot. So it was already looking like maybe this run was going to be done. But, you know, I could have just restarted, but you know what? I was like, let's stick with it. Let's see what happens. We can block a spawn, save the grid, and then Ralph is actually safe. The Alpha Leaper is going to burn to death before it kills him. So all Ralph has to do is just kind of weather one more attack. But he's a little bit out of position. You know, the dispersal mech is slower than the other mechs in the squad with only 3 movement. But, you know, for the first time, I think, since we started doing the Advanced Edition squads, we have a Prime class mech. Most of the new squads introduced in Advanced Edition were the non-Prime variety. So Ralph can disperse that bouncer. And then we can save the grid from that Alpha Scarab by pushing it into the destroyed power plant. Or that forced movement, or bump damage, rather. So that was pretty brutal. We're down to 2 grid health, we're down a pilot. The only reason I think I didn't decide to reset the run was I did get the time pod here. So I was hoping that maybe the time pod would give us something cool. And it gives us the opposite. It gives us the grid charger. I'm not going to waste my only power core powering up the grid charger. It's a really crappy weapon. Maybe in different circumstances I would consider using it to try and repair some of that grid health we lost. But your first power core is very important for the heat sinkers. And you should almost always push it, or put it, into the add push upgrade for the quickfire rockets. Because now, all 3 mechs are capable of forced movement, and you have pretty decent forced movement game at this point. It's a pretty important upgrade. But we're still going to leave the quickfire mech without a pilot inside, since it needs to kind of get a little bit more close to the enemy, and it's kind of fragile, so I'm kind of deciding, okay, this will be our sacrificial mech if we need to make that call. We have a Destroy the Dam mission with shielded buildings, so I'm trying to buy myself some breathing room. And as long as we address the Scarab on C2, we will be in the clear. Of course, this is kind of the weirdness of the Dispersal Mech's weapon. It will shove all of the Vec next to that little lake. It'll push them all to the side, which means the Scarab on E3 will be targeting a non-shielded grid building. So we're going to have to deal with that issue. But I believe that Dispersal Mech was the only one that could solve the other Scarab problem. Thankfully, both the Quickfire Mech and the Napalm Mech have pretty decent movement out of the gate. They are a 4-move unit. I guess that's the price they pay for having 2 HP. You can also see the limited range of the Napalm Mech is really nasty at the outset of the game. You can't really treat it as a ranged class weapon, and unlike a lot of science class weapons, it's just kind of very limited in range. It's got low HP, so it needs to kind of get uncomfortably close to the action. So yeah, heat sinkers have issues with durability, they have issues with range. Until you get that first power core upgrade, the Quickfire Mech, you know, is very weak, only does 1 damage, no forced movement. And as you can see, their whole gimmick of trying to give yourself the boosted ability is difficult to do. It's easier to do on the you know, the easier difficulties because you have less problems to deal with. So you can set up more set up more opportunities, I guess, to get that boosted ability. We're going to just get all of those Vec drowned. The only downside is we had to waste a bunch of XP for my pilots, since the kill goes towards the AI unit, but that's okay. We've got more important things to do, like keeping the run alive. Part of the other reason I decided to play Archive as my first island is because Archive features a lot of forest tiles, which you can light on fire. This is all to the benefit of the heat sinkers. It dissuades the Vec from moving to tiles that are on fire. And you'll be doing slow but steady damage over time. And it gives you more opportunities to get the boosted ability for your mechs. Now, if you can get enough upgrades, and this is true of most squads, but eventually the heat sinkers can become a pretty powerful little machine. It's just that they are, I think they definitely start out in a weaker position than a lot of other squads do. This can be ameliorated with specific pilots. I've been doing this whole series just doing, good old Ralph Carlson. But, you could really tailor your a well-rolled pilot to help with your efforts. I'd say Harold Schmidt is a good pilot to start off with the squad. He gives you more forced movement abilities. Same with, say, Kazakh I'd say Kai is a pretty good pick to get the damage boost. Have it always on. So we need to get that grid health repaired, and we've got a air support mission. I am usually pretty favorable with those. We just have to make sure we take less than 4 mech damage. One important thing to keep in mind is the boosted ability. Not only does it make your weapons do +1 damage, but it also makes the repair action heal 2 HP, which might be relevant on a mission like this, where we need to take less than 4 grid damage. So we have a little bit of a nasty little puzzle here. We have to do something about the Alpha Scarab and the Scarab and the Leaper. But these bouncers are kind of in the way. Thanks to forced movement, though, Quickfire Mech can kill the Leaper for us. But can we do something about the Scarab? I see. I'm giving the Dispersal Mech boosted. That lets me get 1 damage through, thanks to the Shell Scion's armored trait, and then the fire damage finishes it off. That was a good solve. And now we don't have to worry about the Shell Scion anymore. So we've got a 3v3, a pair of Alpha Bouncers and a Scarab, and fortune favors us. Thank you, Archive Bomber. I get into some spawn blocking. This is getting a little bit risky. We're going to be taking a lot of damage here. Ralph will be down to 1 HP. I have to be very careful with how I wind up doing my spawn blocking endeavors here. But I would rather clear out the board and deal with the consequences of spawn blocking next turn. So, as of this moment, we have just about failed our mission state. We're going to have to do some repairing. but that's okay. We're just going to hold the line. Now we will be at 4 damage exactly after blocking these spawns, but it will be the final turn, and we will only have 2 enemies to worry about. So one of our mechs should have a free action to repair themselves. And we don't even have to worry about the Alpha Leaper, so we've just got to deal with the Scarab. Oh, I guess we don't have to sacrifice it. We can just push it with our own boys. That means we don't have to lose 1 more HP, and then Ralph can concentrate on repairing, and this is where the boosted comes in. And now we are at mission success. Not that it really matters, we have forfeited our perfect island reward, but hey, it's 1 more rep. That's another potential power core, or potentially purchasing a nice new piece of equipment at the end of the island, assuming we can keep the run alive. Ralph gets his first promotion and will take +1 mech move. That means he's still a really good fit for the dispersal mech. Now all of my squad has 4 movement. That's pretty strong. For my next mission, we definitely want to try and get that grid health as high as we can get it. So we're going to pick the kill 7 enemies and protect the coal plant mission with the minefield. We're going to leave row 5, space E and F open in the hopes that the enemy will move there, and if they do, in theory, we could shove them into explosives. But they do that on their own for us. This is the other reason that I thought kill 7 enemies sounded pretty doable, is because the mines will do a certain amount of work for us. And then Quickfire will have just enough movement to take care of that Scarab problem for us, and we are in the clear. If we can clear the remaining enemies on this turn, we will have done mission accomplished. The bouncer politely decides to destroy itself for us. The napalm mech has a spare action, and if you find yourself with nothing better to do, it's usually a good idea to just start lighting tiles on fire. These will be spots that you can use to give yourself boosted, or just to dissuade the enemy from walking near them. You can kind of protect the grid. That is mission accomplished. We've got 2 turns left just to survive the fight. The final turn will be a pretty manageable 2v3. And this is a good opportunity for our pilot in the napalm mech to get their first level up. believe they get adrenaline, which is okay. I would rather just have the speed upgrade. But we'll take it. With the fact that he has adrenaline, I believe I'm going to be switching him to the quickfire mech, since the quickfire mech has a slightly better chance of getting kills than the napalm mech. And we are on to the boss fight, which is against the Scorpion leader. This is going to be tricky. So the Scorpion leader is benefiting from the Shell Scion, and his backup dancers are a pair of bouncers and a scarab. So the Scorpion leader is the scariest thing here, easily. As far as where to deploy, we are, unless it attacks the grid on B3, it is probably going to wind up webbing one of my mechs. And then I forget that it can move over water tiles. Whoops. I may have deployed myself slightly differently. So we have 2 threats to the grid, and I really don't want to lose grid health if at all possible. So Dispersal Mech can solve the Alpha Bouncer problem. That just leaves the Scorpion leader, which we can push into the drink. That will cancel its attack out. But unfortunately, it means that the fire will immediately be extinguished. But we've bought ourselves some time. I get a little bit of chip damage, just from forced movement, bump damage. And we will be on to a functional 4v3 on the next turn. So things are still pretty dicey. The boss and the scarab are both targeting the same grid tile, which is about this. It's about at this point I start considering sacrifice plays. If I can solve the bouncer issue, then maybe I'm willing to give up the grid tile on F5. But we also don't want to have Ralph get killed. So I am going to sacrifice the napalm mech. And then this opens up a path for Ralph to kill the bouncer. Now, we're going to be, heavily damaged, down a mech action. However, the Scorpion leader is on fire. So, in theory, its goose is cooked. But this is getting real risky. I was also very glad that I decided to swap the pilot out of the napalm mech. They would be dead now if I did not have the prescience to do that. This is a good turn for the quickfire mech. It can kill the scarab and knock the Scorpion leader out of the way. We couldn't have Ralph do spawn blocking, though, because he would have died in the process. And unfortunately, that also extinguishes the fire. We've got 2 HP left on that Scorpion leader. Not that we have to kill it, We've already forfeited the Perfect Island reward, but, you know, we don't want it to be causing us problems. We're very fortunate, though, in that this being the last turn, only the Scorpion Leader is threatening the grid. And I think we can line up the shot, which is to use the Dispersal Mech to shove the Scorpion Leader out of harm's way, and then Quickfire can get boosted and get the kill. So that was pretty risky, but it kind of worked out in the end. We just had to give up 2 grid health. But the run is alive. I was not sure if I was going to be able to get a successful run recorded with the heat sinkers with any, any consistency. But in the Reputation store, there are 2 very powerful items available, the Frost Beam and the Guided Missile. Now, Guided Missile is a little bit redundant with Quickfire rockets. But Frost Beam is an extremely powerful tool. And even though we've seen it used a bunch of times and we know how powerful ice is, this seemed like a desperate enough run that it was time to just take what was given. We can top the grid off, and then we will have a single power core to equip the Napalm Mech with the Frost Beam, and we can just put the heat engines, onto one of our other mechs, and we will be ready for Island 2, which I hope will go more smoothly. So join me next time to see if I can thread the needle and keep the run alive.